You kneel right now?
We're on. All right, welcome. It's Wednesday, September 28th, and this is the Budget Committee meeting. So let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to make a motion that we go to the national anthem instead of the pledge.
Something like I should say a prayer after on all my kids.
I guess I could.
We need votes, buddy. There's votes coming up. There's votes coming up. All right, so we did that. Any review or additions? Any additions to the agenda? Anything that needs to change?
We need to move 8:30 to 7:30, but that's okay.
I second.
Well, we talk fast. We can possibly do it.
Right.
I keep a record of having fast meetings. All right. So then we move on to the next session, which is the interview the candidates for the open position. So who would like to come up first? I'll close my eyes and point if you want.
Alphabetical?
All right, there you go. Alphabetical.
Green.
Green first. Let's
There
go.
you go. Mrs. Green,
Where am I going?
step up.
Right. Yeah. So name and assume residence address. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Julie Green. I live at 48 Burgess.
Okay. So did everybody get the information that was sent around? Okay. So why are you interested in this position?
Well, I've always been involved with the schools and I always kind of looked at the budget and paid attention to it. And when the opening came up, I thought, this might be a good chance to try it out and see what it's all about and see if I'm interested enough to then run. So that was
Okay.
kind of where it stemmed from.
And what experience do you bring?
I just recently got my MBA. I worked at Hewlett-Packard for about 11, 12 years.
Okay.
Working within the business world, training people, and also being in charge of bringing in all the equipment that we needed and working with the different things. So,
Okay. And we're getting into a very busy schedule. So I mean, we'll be meeting most Thursdays from here on out till just before Christmas, minus Thanksgiving, I think is what it looks like. Will you be able to commit to that schedule?
there were 2 days that I talked to Cindy about.
Okay.
Both are travel that have already been planned.
Okay.
So one is a memorial that I'm going to, and another one
sorry.
is just a family trip.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Julie, you're currently employed by the school district?
I am the library monitor, and I also work with the kids in the school store.
And that's a paid position?
Yes.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
So that was another thing that I brought up to Cindy.
I did have that question for Cindy, and we actually did look for legal counsel, and the only restriction is full-time employees or part-time department heads.
Okay.
So since we don't fall into either of those
Yeah,
categories.
I coach. I'm a paid
No, I know, I just,
district, so.
it had an impact on, like,
Say coach.
I chose not to sub because I thought it was a conflict, so I was like, but now that I got clarification.
There you go.
But it was good to know, and just so that everybody's clear, that even anybody watching, that the conflict restrictions are full-time, self is full-time employee
Okay.
or part-time department head.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it was good to know.
Yeah.
So any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next.
I did bring a couple copies of my resume, if anyone would like to see it.
Okay. I should did print.
My name is Jessica Martin, and I'll go to Mike just a second. Here.
I already have one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm Jessica Martin, and I live at 29 Pearson Street, and I've owned a house here for about 5 years and have been a resident much longer than that. I came through the school system.
Okay.
I graduated high school in 2004, so I was the first class to go all the way through.
Nice.
I also just recently completed my MBA with a concentration in finance, and my undergraduate is in accounting. And I'm a finance manager at a small company called Cathanet in Hudson, and I handle everything from the day-to-day to accounting to the budgeting. So I'm knee-deep in budgeting through any one of my positions, I've done a lot of budgeting.
Okay, so then we'll ask the same question there too. The why, what interests you in this position?
I was previously interested when there was a vacancy last,
Okay.
I think must have been last winter. And I wasn't at the right time because I was finishing my MBA, but now I feel like I'm going to set down roots in Litchfield and I'm going to be here for a long time. I want to be able to give back to my community. And I think this is a way for me to be able to do it and use the skills that I have in a more beneficial way.
Excellent. So we've talked about background, clearly. The schedule, similar question. It's going to be lots
Not an
of-
issue. I don't think there's any dates that immediately pop to mind that are going to be a problem.
I actually forgot that I had a question, so I will ask you and then I will return to Ms. Julie. One of the things that has come under discussion a lot is previous warrant articles that have been passed. And one of which was that through a petition warrant article, the taxpayers have directed the Budget Committee and the School Board to create separate warrant articles for new positions, increased hours of staff, new equipment, and architectural work. And then it states that the Litchfield School Board will then continue practicing or past practices to provide voters with greater choice and increases in school spending. Is that a petition article that you plan to continue supporting? Or would we leave that up to the discretion of the members?
I'm not sure. I think I'd want to read it and digest it a little bit more before I had an answer.
Okay. All right, and
It's
then,
not like we haven't debated it endlessly.
well, I would like to know if we have somebody
Well, if
coming onto the
everybody is
board,
on
what their
board, I think-
position is on that warrant article.
I think if everyone else was already on board with it and there was no major disagreement, I don't think I'd put up a fight with what has already been stated.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, then I would like to direct the same question to Julie. So again, it's the warrant, some time ago, the voters have stated that they want warrant articles for new positions, increased hours of staff, new equipment, and architectural work. So regardless of our personal opinions, that they should be put on a warrant article,
All of those items?
all of those items.
So they would be more warrant articles that people would have to go and vote for.
Well, there's a lot fewer now than there used to be, so there used to be
Really?
30-some, so we're down to 6. So would you continue to, traditionally, we have upheld this. Would you support continuing with this warrant article, abiding by the direction of the voters?
Is there the ability to have a discussion and put some of them forward, but not other ones? Like, I mean, there's some that I could see, like equipment, wanting to put forward because it's different. But then hours, really kind of working within the school board or the budget committee to figure out if it makes sense within, those parameters. So a
Well-
blanket across everything,
The one exception would be that, because there's another warrant article stating that staffing levels, so if it makes sense to hire within the ratio an extra third grade teacher.
Right.
That would not be a warrant article. But if we added an assistant principal from part-time to full-time,
We
that
just
should be a
did.
warrant article. So, based on the direction of the voters, would you continue to uphold the warrant article, the directive that has been provided?
I don't think I would.
Okay, I appreciate your honesty. Did that clarification help? That the teacher for the ratios versus a position? Does that change, or you need more time to digest?
Well, the expenditure would have to be justified somehow, and if the voters want it to be voted on, I don't know if it's necessary that they need to have a vote on every single specific thing, but like major things, I would say yes, but a teacher from full-time to part-time might not necessarily warrant that kind of
Okay,
vote.
I appreciate your answers. So I guess at this time, we don't have Paul here unless he's in the hallway. Paul?
Paul?
1, 2, 3. All right. So, anybody have a motion that they'd like to make?
I'd like to make a motion for Jessica Martin.
All right.
I'll second that.
Okay. So all those in favor of appointing Jessica, well, what exactly are you motioning? Appointing her to?
So I don't know that we can appoint her, but I think that
That's what
the
the
bylaws was to offer.
vote to appoint a new member
Okay,
or
and I'm going to
continue.
make a motion to appoint Jessica Martin, excuse me. Because I'm assuming if we appoint her, she's actually gonna be a member of the committee.
Okay, and there was the second. So all those in favor of appointing Jessica Martin to the vacant space on the Budget Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, I will say
Aye.
aye. Those abstained?
Abstain.
All right, so what's the vote tally? Those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Aye. Two. Those opposed? All right. All right, so then.
One abstention.
One abstention, so the vote fails 2-3-1. Would anybody else like to make a motion? Yeah, another motion is we continue the search, so it is up to you guys as to what you'd like to vote for.
I'll make a motion to appoint Julie Green as Budget Committee member.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
All right, second. All those in favor of appointing Julie Green to the vacant position on the Budget Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. Those abstaining?
Abstain.
All right, so I believe it passes.
3-1-2.
Yes. All right, so then you have to be sworn in before you can
Yes.
vote. So we will need to go visit the town hall.
Cindy has to process paperwork, I think.
All right,
first.
so when Cindy, you will have to process paperwork because she is watching at some point. And then, Cindy is watching YouTube at some point. So this is a message to Cindy. You, once that paperwork is processed, then you can go down and be sworn in, and then you'll be legal to vote. Okay?
Can I make just a comment to
Sure.
Jessica? So Jessica, please run, because there's gonna be lots and lots and lots of open positions, and we
Yes.
need people with your
Mhm.
experience.
Okay.
And don't take
Absolutely.
anything here personally, like, please run,
Yes.
please.
All right. All right, so that handles, yes, thank you so much for your willingness to come forward. This committee does a lot. There's been a lot of interesting discussion, and it's definitely worthwhile. And I appreciate your interest and definitely the fresh faces, so that's awesome. And yes, there will be a deep ballot this year, because there's a lot to vote on, even just in the candidate spots. But, so, please,
There's
definitely
like
continue.
4 positions that
Across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it's been a very interesting year already.
In the budget committee, there'll be 4?
Yes, because we've had three resignations, 2, something like that. I forgot. At this point, I've lost track. There's been quite a bit of turnover this year. So there will be a lot of filling the terms.
4, I believe. Madam Chair will know for certain.
She will.
No, there'll be
And
4.
she, I'm sure, is like, I can't believe you don't know that
And I
answer.
think there are 3 school board positions up?
But there's a
2 or-
lot.
2.
Two.
So get involved. This town doesn't work without volunteers, so please, get involved. All right. So public input. Guys, would you like to say anything? Because you are on my public right now. All right, so that moves on to the next thing, the review and acceptance of the minutes. We did have a set of meeting minutes from August 24th. Has everybody had a chance to read them? All right, would anybody like to make a motion?
Actually,
With any changes to them?
it's semantic, but,
Oh, you,
no, page 2, it says, Mr. Miller for the total budget increase this year. And I think Mr. Miller requested a total budget increase for
how
this
far
year.
down?
Under number 2. end
Oh, I
of
see
year.
it.
Yeah.
Request, yes, yeah. Well, I was sick, you know.
I was,
She did it from a recording, give her a break.
I will try to enunciate better, so. Other than that, I didn't have anything else.
All right,
I'll make a motion to approve them as amended.
okay,
Second it.
all right. All those in favor of approving the amended minutes, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Abstained? All right. Moving on. School business. Why do you look like that?
I've only been on the board, I've been to 3 meetings, I'm ready.
All right. Go ahead. What do you got? General updates, enrollment, and end-of-year expenditures on IT are on my list.
Oh, you got a list?
I got an agenda.
He didn't give you an agenda? Yeah, they clearly don't like you.
They threw you into the den with the wolves.
I can't get online to get the projected numbers, but I
School
know,
board person to show up without. I've been there.
If you say it with confidence,
we got the first numbers, I know that, but they're gonna do another count before the next meeting.
Yeah, there are no updated enrollment numbers at this time.
Oh, Michelle could probably give the update. What's the next question?
All right, so anything general, well, I guess that would include budget, committee.
Superintendent
Mm-hmm.
committee, they are starting the process. Oh, I didn't read it. They're gonna start the process of the superintendent search. I believe they're going to send out a survey. We're gonna send out a survey to the public, not just parents of the school. They're gonna try and send it out maybe through the WhatsApp page or something like that, some more community involvement. If I remember correctly, there'll be 2 community members, 2 parents, 1 or 2 students, 3 LEA members, 3 teachers, 1, the business administrator, looking at Michelle, an administrator, and I believe the superintendent said he would be the, what was the word he used?
Ex-officio.
That.
Facilitator, basically.
facilitator. So they're starting the process.
And 3 LSS members.
Yes. And that are going to be chosen by the,
The school board. The community.
well, the schools are going to come up with the
With the
diverse,
people, right.
and then they're gonna go to the superintendent, and then they're going to, bring those people in front of the school board for us to decide who's going to be on the board.
What is LSS?
The support staff union?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, I thought I said, yeah, the support staff.
You said
LEA.
LEA, 3 from the LEA and then 3 teachers.
Oh, sorry, that was 3 from the LEA, 3 from the LSS. How's that?
Good.
I don't know what that is.
And then I heard did the draft report come in for the building?
That was 2 weeks ago, and they're still waiting for another final copy. Am I correct, Michelle?
For what? I'm sorry.
The report from the
Facilities and stuff.
facilities. There's one more report they're waiting
Oh,
for.
the building
capital
assessment.
Yeah.
We are waiting for the final report. The BA did reach out several times
Mm-hmm.
to the architect. We are, as a planning committee, we are going to meet in 2 weeks, regardless of having that or not.
And John is heading that.
John is the
John
chair
is
at this
gonna
time.
bring that back.
Yep. Okay. And your budget development is going well?
Yes.
Excellent.
So I know Cindy had asked for the end-of-year expenditures on IT.
Okay.
We got a list of, or we got a dollar figure of what got spent at the end of June. And I had made the request to Cindy to get what equipment was actually bought
Okay.
by the vendor and a sum total, so we could see that, so.
Oh, for
I
like the
know Cindy has-
one-on-one Chromebooks and things like
Well,
that?
I don't know, so it said there was $120,000, whatever the number was, spent on technology. I just wanted to see what that breakdown was. But I know Cindy's communicated that in,
Okay.
so.
I can bring that back up to the board and remind them. Anything else you want me to bring back?
I'm good for now, unless anybody else has any other questions. All right, we're now off the hook. You did well. Survived to make another meeting. Town business. General updates.
Yeah, so I'll defer to Mr. Brown, because
Okay.
Mr. Brown is because all the updates are around the budget efforts that we're doing these days, so I'll let Troy run through the.
Well, did you want me to read the letter then from Brent first, since it kind of, does it affect?
Yeah, it's noted at the end, so if you want to introduce
All right.
that now.
Let me find it again.
I'll pass these out with
All right, so I did get a note from Brent on the budget, about some changes that were being made structurally within the town, I believe. So this is the letter that was sent from Brent, so this view represents his and not mine.
Thank you.
Because I don't even know what I'm reading yet, so, because I actually haven't read it yet. Over the past several years, members of this, as well as previous boards of selectmen, have been studying operations and reviewing proposals and options for streamlining code enforcement for both fire and building operations. This past year, I, Brent Lemire, asked Mr. Brown to work with the fire code and chief enforcement officer to review the application of the codes and research options that could simplify the permitting processes and application of the fire, life safety, and building codes. The intent is to offer residents and businesses doing business in Litchfield a path that is seamless and result in a one-stop operation, while in the long term also provide an increase in the level of service and no increase in cost to the taxpayers. While researching many options, one that stood out as the most feasible for a town our size, and one that several towns have, or are in the process of adopting, is the model that combines all of the code enforcement and health functions into a division within the fire department. As both agencies conduct inspections, issue permits, and provide life safety functions, it seems reasonable to place these functions under one agency, eliminating duplicitous functions and enhancing the services provided by the department. While any change will require detailed planning for logistical changes and updated job descriptions, I have asked the fire chief for proposals in these areas, and they are currently being drafted. Updating operations and changes are always challenging, but in this case, I feel confident that the stakeholders will work to ensure that this becomes a model of efficiency for all concerned. Tonight, I assume this was a few weeks ago, I am asking my fellow board members to adopt the framework for this change so that we may move forward quickly to create a model that will serve citizens of Litchfield well in the years to come. I would ask for a motion to approve the consolidation of the code enforcement, building, health, and zoning application functions into the fire department under the direction of the chief, effective Sunday, September 17th. So I believe that passed?
That passed.
So that's
and
the
it's in-
new,
it's in effect
the new
now.
structure.
Yep.
So, would you like this for the?
Sure.
There you go.
I don't know if there's any questions regarding the change, but as he said, it helps remove some of the duplicate efforts that go on and conflicts that occur,
Okay.
so it's a good strategy.
All
Yeah,
right.
and the transition, as you said, this was a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's in place, it's still, being worked on, but formally it has occurred. The plan is to take it in small steps.
Right.
It may take us a period of 2 years to fully implement. The more I've worked with it and worked with the fire chief, it really does look like it's gonna make a lot of sense. And I was surprised that, learning about other communities that do the same thing. So it's sharing, those inspection services are done by fire and then done by code and by a health officer, and it's really putting everything under one umbrella. It's gonna be a lot easier, I think, for business owners, homeowners, developers. It really is that one-stop shopping. Shouldn't be a lack of communication anywhere. Always getting a consistent message. So it's good. Before we jump into the budget, I just wanted to, I know Selectman Brunel has been giving you updates every month on our current budget. We're getting to that point now, we're entering the fourth quarter, and I'll be working on doing budget projections and presenting to the board at our next meeting. It's been, the budget itself was a good solid budget, except we got caught with a few surprises with fire hydrants, as you know. We're not expecting those to come online until 2018. And when we were formulating the budget last fall, we just forgot that some work was going on in the fall and those hydrants were gonna go live. We also never did fully address funding our special legal counsel for our discussions with St. Gobain regarding the contamination that they've done in this town. So that cost,
So what exactly is in that cost? Is that primarily just the town, or does that also include
So-
representation for homeowners?
so what I'm talking about is just our legal discussions with St. Gobain about being compensated and coming to some resolution to matters that impact the town, not so much private citizens, but the town itself. So,
But we've also had the citizens in mind, and so some of the things we've asked for were to try to help
Right.
to offset what was going on, things like coordination, all that. So we've constantly thought about what the impact was. There's certain things we can't deal with, like we can't pay for your water kind of stuff.
Right.
But it's been a good process. But I think the challenge was, with the fire hydrants, we never expected the project to go as fast as it went and as close as it did, or as quickly as it did. Legal cost was unknown. We didn't know what we were going to get ourselves into. So.
So does it look like St. Cobain is going to recover any of those legal costs?
Still undetermined.
I mean, I realize we have to front load it, but hopefully we can have
yeah.
unanticipated revenue.
It's a demand. I mean, our demands on our our letter is on our website, and it's one of the demands.
We've asked for everything we can ask for.
Yeah. So.
You won't know unless you ask, right?
Right. And so So, yeah, we'll be firming up the budget. I can just tell you that it's going to be another year, that it will be a tight budget. So, kind of concerned about that, but we'll see. It really, the highway department took a huge hit. I think they have 15% of their budget left. And so really this winter, it depends on what happens October, November, December.
Right.
Police departments had a lot of transition this year, so we still have some vacant, have one vacant position. But throughout the year, we had, maybe
Right.
a couple of vacancies. We didn't fill the newly created position, so because of those transitions, there's been some savings there, we hope, too. So, we'll see.
So the big question that everybody's burning to ask, how far over the tax cap are we?
With the proposed budget?
With no warrant articles.
With no warrant articles, how far over are we?
So, if you want to jump into that, I was just
I
gonna.
just figured, as I'm preparing to go
Cut to
through
the chase.
this.
Terry wants to know, and we gotta tell her.
Oh, you want to know this year? The
Well,
2017
this is-
or the
The one I'm
2018?
gonna be starting to look through. How far over are we? Let's
But just think about the hydrants, that'll tell you right there.
I
No, it's-
wanted,
You'd have to go, unfortunately, these don't have page numbers, but I believe it's the last page of the spreadsheet. Actually, just flip it over.
Yeah.
And I've done the best that I can do at this point in time. I've tried to calculate our tax cap and how it would play into the 2018 proposed budget. But, I was going to introduce the budget saying there's still a lot of items that have
no, I
not been
appreciate
addressed.
that, but
So
we're,
there's one, it's really misleading right out of the gate here, because if you take a look at this, we are exceeding, based on my projection, our tax rate's not set yet for 2017. Everything's benchmarked against 2017. We're exceeding the tax cap by, call it $85,000, 84,348.
Right.
What's misleading though with that is that we have a zero placeholder for the fire station bond.
well, there's that, and my question too is we expanded the veterans credit, so how does that play into this?
So we pretty confident that the veterans credit will be that 119,902. That's what we granted last year in 17. So
Right, but we've greatly expanded who's eligible for it.
yeah, but we didn't see. I mean, that's the one thing when you're doing your tax cap. There are things that you can only use the
Right.
best data you have at the time you're calculating it. I won't know the veterans credit increase until after April 1st in 2018.
Okay,
So I can tell you that it jumped from the 114 to 119, and that was due primarily because of the warrant article that passed last year.
right.
It was a pretty stagnant number, so that increased there. Now, every year, the word's gonna get out a little bit more, I expect it.
Right.
But I really don't anticipate a large jump, probably something similar to what we saw last year.
Okay. All right, so now that I've stole your thunder, you want to go proceed as to how you wish to?
So, you allow the tax cap, remember, it allows you to grow no more than 175,000, so that's built in. So we are 85,000 over the tax cap.
That's without the health insurance and rates being finalized,
Right,
the
so
pension contributions?
That's right. So, without the fire station bond.
So,
some
we can look
other-
at it one of two ways. It's either gonna be a really easy budget or a really hard one.
Yeah, and if you want to take a look, you have your budget, and I just kind of put together a quick Word document, didn't do a PowerPoint thing, but just trying to give you highlights, because I understand that you're going to walk away with this budget tonight. You're going to be looking at it, and then next week we'll start reviewing. So I wanted to make you aware of where we're at right
Okay.
now with our budget development. So Monday night, we did a lot of work on the budget. We really did, I think, kind of narrow the warrant articles down. The board hasn't approved them yet. We didn't have a full quorum. And of course, we're still working on the fire station design. So what you have there is, I believe, 9 warrant articles. So we've worked hard at actually reducing the number of articles in anticipation of the fire station bond. Just worthy of noting, some of the annual warrant articles that you don't see this year. You don't see the $200,000 question for roads. And the reason for that was that, a couple things. Obviously, St. Cobain, the water project, did a lot of work in the north end of town. And we received the extra funding this year from the state for highway block grant funding. It's $172,000, almost equivalent to what we get every year for block grant. So the selectmen are looking at that and saying, you know, if there was ever a time that we're just gonna take a step back and, you know, try to accomplish some other things, this would be the year to do it. And it shouldn't really have a big impact on the long term,
Till we try
on
adding it
our
back in
road
again
improvement
later.
plan. So that was the thinking, justification behind
Well,
that.
I appreciate your thinking. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I thank you for thinking of it.
And also the health agencies. I know that for the last couple of years, this has kind of gone back and forth, but
Is it back in the budget?
it's back in the budget.
God's sakes.
Just wanted to bring that to your attention. I know that can
Tried to
generate
put
some
back in 2 years
discussion.
ago, so.
Oh my gosh, I feel like, can we just, oh, why? Because you know that's gonna be another, like, 2 hour, an hour discussion at least.
You know what, the board dynamic has changed a lot, so perhaps it won't be.
Well, again, we have
Well,
a
it's-
tax cap,
I
and
mean,
that's
it's
an
back in
easy
the
one
budget
to.
where it was before we took it out. I mean, we took it out of the budget originally to go back to the citizens and say, do you want us to continue supporting these organizations? We intended it to be a one-year ask. It's morphed into many more years. It's there now. If people want to change it, deliberately they can do that. They can, you know, go right for that line item and say, I want to either increase it or lower it, and then we can accommodate that.
Yeah. So it's funded in the operating budget in 2018, as it was funded last year, approved by voters.
Okay,
So that means that there are other agencies that did not receive funding last year.
yeah.
And their requests, you know, have been submitted. But at the selectmen's recommendation, they're not
So is that
recommending
like-
those funding.
So how much is it at?
So the other unfinished business was with Recreation Commission, you know, volunteer board, doing a lot of work. And they got a couple major projects which they just didn't have their numbers yet. One was the field maintenance contract for mowing, seeding, fertilization. That expires the end of this December. That's out for request for proposals right now. So they'll be working on that, and they'll have a good, solid, competitive price
Yeah,
sometime here soon.
so what's the placeholder for that one?
And so I've left the number in there that was last year's number.
Okay.
They're also, as you know, we're very fortunate that Continental Paving reconstructed our basketball courts for us this summer. And they're looking into a cost of, not resurfacing, but painting and striping.
Sealing it, basically.
Sealing it, essentially. And no one really knows, but the number that's been kicked around could be $25,000, $27,000 to do that. And there's not a lot of companies that do it, so they're, you know, working on trying to get a price for that. They're also looking at Jeff Lane, just making sure that, you know, whatever costs are gonna be needed for that.
Nice to finally get that
I think
one.
it's, based on where the status of the construction right now, I think we're pretty good. And I must have touched on it somewhere else or wherever, but, so I kind of wrapped it into the fact that we don't have the default budget right now. I think that was a request of the budget committee that you wanted to have that default budget as soon as possible. And it's difficult to put together. We just did some wage increases Monday night, so we need to incorporate that. And we're still waiting for the big ones, the health insurance, property liability, workers' compensation, and then, like I said, the non-union wage increases. So I will get the default budget to you, you know, but again, you're still gonna be missing probably the health insurance and property liability.
Just makes it easier and easier.
Can you explain how wage increases make it into the default budget?
Well, the wage increases would be, they're essentially a contract.
So it's for contract, not
No, once you
Once you,
increase
it's a
someone's
contract,
wage,
if I increase someone's wage, it's,
Well, I think, are you asking about the wage plan that has the?
Not the,
step?
nothing that we're talking about in 2018, but increases that were granted in 2017. Yeah. And they just-
I was really gonna
Okay, I'm
question Mr. Brunel, because the
No, no,
board
no.
would just vote everybody a raise, and then it would go in the
this was-
default.
No.
The raises that were given in 2017 were based on our wage plan, and our
Yes,
performance review plan, and the amount of money that we had set aside for it, and
Yeah.
that's the
That's what
increase.
you're, okay.
Correct,
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
And so we-
That makes perfect sense.
And that, yeah, okay, so,
Take it easy.
non-union. Okay, and a couple other things, we'll be talking, the police prosecutor contract is up in December, and currently, right now, the Board of Selectmen's working on a performance review for me, so there may or may not be some changes in my salary line between now and when you guys act on it. Assumptions that we've made in the budget right now, actually holding the price that we have for regular and diesel fuel at $2.25 and 275 gallons, 275 for diesel. Propane, again, using the school numbers. This is the price that the school has been able to lock in, and that's jumped a little bit from last year. It's $1.34, I think. I think last year was $1.12 a gallon. So you'll probably see something pretty large on the school side, because I'm sure their consumption is much larger than ours.
Was that based on, like, the current pricing, or like the pricing that they actually project it to be?
So they would purchase the school, and I think we use, was it Eastern Fuel? They own the tanks and everything,
Right.
so you can do your best just trying to negotiate. I mean, you could probably go out and get another company, then you gotta get into dealing with changing out tanks. But the price that they received from July till June is
Okay.
$1.34 a gallon.
July was before everything jumped up, right, so it's probably good.
A year ago, the school was able to lock in at $1.12. And we just piggybacked that contract, because we don't have
Buying capacity?
we just don't have the leverage that the school has,
Well, we don't have the volume, right?
the volume.
Yep.
Wish I paid that one.
So electricity,
too.
I've built in, I've gone, you'll see, there's always a link to every electric account, and we have a run rate, and then I've just gone, so I may have tweaked where I think our actual consumption is, and just increased everything 5%. So electric's always it's not an easy one to really, unless you know exactly the kilowatts, but now with the distribution and the energy charge and this tax and that,
That's
it's not
ridiculous.
easy. So, and health insurance in the budget right now, even though we don't know what the increase will be, we've carried a 10% increase. And just for a note, our tax base increase is projected to increase approximately $8 million this year. Primarily driving that is the Page Road housing development and some of the utilities that we finally have resolved. Like
You
with
did get
our-
that resolved.
We didn't get, not with Pennachuck, but Fairpoint Communications has been resolved, so.
Doesn't
But
Penn
utilities
Check
are
get
never
enough
re-
from us?
Believe me, they have lots of money, and their standard procedure is to always appeal every tax bill, so it never ends. So as you know, the hydrants in this budget, you'll see that they're up $153,000 from last year. The legal budget is up $60,000. That is 100% continuing our efforts with the special legal counsel for St. Gobain. The fire department has an increase of $30,000 for safety tools, which I believe is the Jaws of Life that they're looking to purchase. We're going to look to see if there's a way that we can squeeze that cost out of the 2017 budget, but again, budget's really tight, so I'm not sure if that will happen. Police cruiser, not saying it's an increase, but I just wanted to point out that we're only purchasing one cruiser this year. Last year, I think we allocated $80,000, so this year it's 45. That represents a new cruiser, and also the cost to take the cruiser that's gonna be coming off Frontline and just doing the fit up, that, to take it offline and take stuff out, make it a backup cruiser for either special detail or wherever it's assigned. And then we've included in the, obviously, we have a union contract which expires in 2018. The last wage increase for them is a 2%, so that's in the budget effective April 1st, 2018. Also worth noting that in 2018, on July 1st, 2018, one of the things the selectmen were able to negotiate in this contract was in the last year of the contract, we have two plans. We have the point of service and we have an HMO. The police officers will, on July 1st, be paying 100% of the difference of the HMO up. So if they buy up to the point of service plan, they pay 100% of the difference of the cost. Right now, it's 50-50. So it was a sliding agreement, and they will finally get to the 100% on July. The non-union wage increases, we have now, the board decided this year that instead of doing the implementation in the third year, where we were strictly just doing adjustments to certain positions to get them to a target rate, we decided that we would move forward with just a performance-based plan. So we did reviews this year for the first time, I understand, and it went really well. Essentially, what we've done this year in the 2018 budget, we have a $15,000 allowance, so it's just a pot of money that will be used to give, as we do the, merit reviews, performance reviews, so. And the increase, the town, last year you heard a little discussion about the town clerk, tax collector's office trying to increase some evening hours. Also trying to get another part-time position to help with the increase of hours, but also to serve as backup for vacation time, sick time, people out for training. So you'll see in the budget where there's an increase in the hours to do that. We started to implement that this year. And we had everything moving forward, and unfortunately, when you're dealing with part-timers, no benefits, we had a third person on board. That person only was with us for about 2 weeks, 2.5, and as soon as they found a job with maybe better pay and some benefits, they left us. So we're having kind of a cool-off period right now, but in the first of the year, the town clerk will be starting to trying to recruit another part-timer. And we talked about the building inspector change.
Right. Okay. That's general and budget. Fire station?
So the fire station is moving along. We have, what we've done so far is we have surveying crews that have been out on site. They're doing their work. They've been already out and collected the data, so they're back working on their software, entering all that data. We've gone out, we've been able to, between impact fee money and the money that was raised at town meeting, been able to allocate some additional funding for the architect so that he could change. We had to, we were going to use the existing plans. But then the board decided that they wanted to make sure that the plan for the fire station was a long-term plan. So we started talking about having a phase 1, which would be a fire station, and making sure that we plan for phase 2, which would be a police station one day, the addition, and then eventually one day you'd have a municipal safety complex. So in order to do that, we were going to have to change the internal floor layout of the fire station to make sure that those rooms and facilities would be able to be shared with the eventual police station one day. Things like, the training room, the communications, if we ever ended up having a joint dispatch facility, showers, those types of things, equipment storage. So we're changing some of the floor line, layout to accommodate that, and repositioning the building so that it would allow for the addition of the police station. At the same time, the police department right now, through the authorization of the selectmen, have hired an architect to do a needs analysis and sort of put together some cost estimates of what it would, cost to build a police station that would meet the needs of the community for, the next X number of years. So that, and the purpose of that was, one, to make sure that the footprint that we plan on, for this facility is planned on accordingly. You don't want to just put down a 4,000 square foot footprint for the future phase 2, and come to find out you need 12,000 square feet.
Right.
So that's, we're working on that. So back to the fire station, we've gone out for RFP for construction managers. We got 6 responses back. We've interviewed, the fire chief, myself, and the architect did a scoring of all 6, and we narrowed it down to 4. The selectmen Monday night authorized the fire chief to put together a small group of interested citizens and some staff members to meet with these contractors and hopefully be able to select the general contractor or construction manager that we think will be best for the job. And then once you have the construction manager in place, that person starts working with the architect, and the ultimate goal is they formulate the price and they give us a guaranteed maximum price not to exceed.
Right.
And that's our goal, to have that price in hand before we end up going forward with this. There will be, this all happened kind of fast, so we will have, the board will formally create the committee on October the 16th.
Okay.
So right now, it's just sort of, the
So they
fire
will-
chief had a few, we went and reached out to some citizens and some staff members.
So will it be open to the community to put to?
And it'll be, be public meetings and,
No, I'm just saying for the committee itself.
yeah, we have a couple, it will be. We have, a couple citizens right now. Renee Terrell, he's volunteered to serve on it. Thomas Young from the planning board chair, he's volunteered. We have Kevin Lynch, building inspector, he's gonna be on it. Fire chief, myself.
Good.
There's some others, so, I'm not sure if the budget committee, if you want to have someone on that committee or not, let us know. And when the selectmen, create the committee, we can make sure that there's a position available for a budget committee member.
Okay.
All right?
That's something we'll have to take up with the budget committee.
I know, it's.
As we said, the dynamics have changed, so we don't know what the
Right.
view of the committee will be.
Historically, that's something that
That
has
they've
been shied
declined,
away.
yeah.
That's what I've been told by your chair,
Yeah.
and so, but, which I understand.
Now
Just want to
where?
make sure
Yep.
the offer is there
Yeah.
if you
Nope,
want.
appreciate it. Now, where within all of this is the plan, what to do with the existing building,
With the what?
with the existing fire station?
So there's no plan yet.
Okay,
Well, I think,
I think that's gonna be more with the committee probably will start.
right. Well, the reason I ask is because one of the reasons we put forth this fire station is we didn't want to sink money into an aging building. And if we continue to have said aging building, we're still going to have to sink money into it. So we're not really gaining.
I think the discussion around the building was potentially using it for storage. The issue with the building today is it can't accommodate the equipment that needs to go in the building. And there are areas of that building that probably shouldn't be used. But but as a building itself, for doing storage of long-term records, it's probably perfectly fine, right? But it's still up for discussion and what we're doing. We're using the old town hall today for records down below in the basement, which is always wet. We'd like to pull that stuff out of there if we could.
Right.
There's also equipment that doesn't have a home, small trails and stuff that could potentially go into the garage portion of it.
Right.
Again, the building wouldn't require that much rehab to do that if that's the decision, but I don't think there's been any long-term decisions about what we're gonna do with the building.
I just think that it should be factored into the price because I know people have supported it with the understanding that we'll save money because we're not putting money into the existing fire station, but if we're still putting money into the existing fire station, then we haven't really addressed the main concern.
I just think we need to not lose sight of the fact the existing fire station cannot accommodate today's equipment that's required to fight fire. It doesn't. If we have to buy it, and we're looking down the barrel of a truck, at some point in time.
I,
If we have to buy a truck that's customly built to fit that garage,
mhm.
it will cost us twice as much as it was to buy it off the floor. So, because it has to be custom built. Trucks today are built narrow and taller, we cannot fit taller, so you have to go wider and longer. It's just, it's inevitable. So, the point is I don't think there's any real decision about the building. We're not, I don't think I've not heard anybody say we're gonna tear it down.
Fire department training, maybe?
Building up, who knows, right?
Right.
But I understand what you're saying. If there's any cost associated with rehabbing it, we probably should factor it in there. But
Right.
again, we're still waiting for the numbers that come out of the building itself.
There's also, to Carrie's point, is just the cost, not for the rehab, but just for operating the building.
Sure.
Even if you're doing storage, I'm assuming there's some amount of climate control.
Yeah.
You gotta maintain HVAC, you gotta have a
Yeah,
sprinkler
it'll be a whole lot
system, all that
less
fun
than it is
stuff.
today, but yeah.
Yeah,
Right, but if we're gonna move to a new building, we should.
there should
We'll do
be.
it
Oh,
a
I'm
plan.
all for, personally, and I've said it out loud, tear it down and make it a big parking lot.
Good with that.
But that's, again, that building has a little bit of history in town. It may,
Continental could put a basketball court in there for us, maybe.
then we'd have traffic problems coming off of CBA, just the Charles bankrupt, so.
So I think that however we present it to the community, we need to have a plan for what we're gonna do there, because that could affect some people's decisions as to whether or not to ultimately end up voting for, because they're not gonna wanna pay for two buildings, to come down to. The whole point is we're paying for an upgraded building, so we don't have to pay for the existing building. And if we're paying for an existing building, well, pick one. So,
Hopefully, we're not designing a building that doesn't fit all the current equipment.
No, it will fit all the current equipment.
I'm just,
how about the equipment in 10 to 15 years? Because I don't wanna build a new building in 15 years.
I can't tell you what no one knows what that's gonna look like.
we just have one big door on the front.
Aircraft hangar.
We have several big doors in the front.
No, just one large one, so there's never any.
I mean, I
They
think
always
that-
worry about, it's always.
The original design did not accommodate that the new building that we're looking at was not accommodated to be expanded to other use cases. We're doing that because we believe that in 10 years down the road, we're gonna have other issues to deal with. So we're trying to think ahead.
Yep.
And we can only take the advice from people who do this on a regular basis and where the future is going, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to accommodate all that.
Okay.
It's a 5, right now it's being, from what I understand, what this town has seen in the past, there was some discussion about a 5-bay station. However, I think it all got cut back to 3 bays. And it was designed so that you could always add the extra 2 bays on down the road. Right now, we're working on a design for 5 bays, and you would be able to put,
How
I'm
many
assuming.
trucks do we currently have?
Ooh,
All right, fire trucks. How many fire trucks?
9.
9?
So you have 2 frontline engines, you have a tanker, another engine, you get a rescue, you have a forestry truck, you have a heavy duty,
Do you have a ladder truck?
No, we don't have a ladder truck. We don't need a ladder.
Don't even go, that was a whole.
Sorry, I'm a firefighter, daughter of a Boston firefighter, I had to ask. Go jaws of life.
No, I know, but we don't have any
We have both.
buildings at the.
But how deep is the building? Do they put the front lines and then they,
It'll be
Yeah.
two, it'll be a pull-through, there'll be pull-throughs, but today we have to back in, so the pull-throughs, there'll be 2, I believe there'll be 2 trucks deep. Maybe a little bit bigger than that, but I think it's 2 trucks deep, if I remember correctly.
so 2 trucks, meaning 2 F-150, 350s or
No, full-
apparatus?
Full
apparatus, yeah.
apparatuses, yeah.
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 Just curious.
Doesn't hurt to ask. Alrighty, any other questions?
I'll just prep you for the inevitable question that you're gonna get is, how long after this do you want full-time staff? Because that
is
will,
not in the.
Well, I'm just telling you that-
But that's not even in the.
you will get to that question,
know.
and that people will base their vote on that fire station on whether they believe it leads to full-time
And I hope they don't,
firefighters.
because at some
I hope
point-
they don't, but
At some point in time, if we don't deal with this fire station problem, we will have a problem with our fire department, because
we're
we
gonna
don't
have them
have,
covered with blue tarps.
we don't have any place to put it. It's bad enough as it is, the one time we have trucks that are outside,
It's the apparatus.
the
Oh,
apparatus.
I get it, I'm
Really, what
not
we're up
arguing,
against
I'm
here is
just,
a deadline of getting a facility that we can house our new apparatus. So the real question will be, it won't be the adding full-time firefighters. The next step, once the station's built, we'll be discussing
Apparatus.
purchasing new
well, that's the other
apparatus.
question.
Because
Do you
the
feel that
apparatus
you
are
can
like
fill it now that
20
you have it?
We can
25
fill it
years
now.
old.
The problem is we have a frontline vehicle, we have a frontline engine that is coming up for replacement. Not, actually, I think it's a second tier engine now, but
So
we're
would
getting
the,
to that point where the frontline needs to go second tier and we need a frontline. right?
so would the plan then to be, so you would take the GMP and then plan to bond it, or how would this look in the budget?
The only way we could afford it would be a bond.
Yeah, okay.
Can we fight about that?
Yeah, that would blow the tax cap
No, I'm just saying
right
like
out
a
of the water.
5-year, 10-year, 20-year.
Yeah, I
I
just-
mean, like,
I want to, I mean, the other thing, the stress that the tax cap, we're up against that, and it's going to be a challenge in general. And this committee can certainly not approve anything, but can still send it to the voters to vote on,
right.
right? At the end of the day, and the other side of it too, I think there was a question asked about.
That's actually next on the member input, something, yeah.
Okay.
Budget committee recommendation on articles over tax cap. Cindy thought of it.
I just want, like I said, we're up against a wall, and we have to deal with that from a tax cap perspective. And we probably, maybe we weren't thinking about what that tax cap,
I
what the
was.
cause and effect was, but it sounded good when we did, and the voters believed it was good, and I think ultimately they probably will believe it's good. It's just the problems, we've had some significant increases over the last couple of years that were not a factor. But I think it's still important that the voters have the choice. You can take our operating budget and do the best to cut it out where it makes more sense, and be sensible about it, and still be over the tax cap, not approve it, but you've done your job, you presented a reasonable budget. Send it to the voters, let them vote for it.
I don't think we can put
No,
a,
we can't.
we
No, I-
can't, we have to
can't
have.
recommend it.
We have to
can't
have.
You
it-
can't recommend it,
Right.
so
You can't recommend
our
it.
If
hands
we
are
don't
tied.
recommend it, your budget goes forward. That's the way it works.
No,
If we
well,
can't come
that's
to
true.
a recommendation.
That's true.
It falls
Yeah.
back on the
That's
governing
That's a good
body.
question, because you can cut all you want and still not get there, and then have to make a bottom line cut. We can
Yep.
go back and deliver, put it back in, and then it would be what it is.
Yeah, and then we vote, and then we
Like
still
I
can't
said,
recommend it.
it's gonna be an interesting year.
So Troy, I have a question for you. How does the bond article fit into the tax cap? Is it only the payment on the first year?
It would be, yes.
So if the interest payment was $50,000,
That's a good point.
that
yeah.
counts against this year.
But then it gets concluded in.
So but the next year,
Right.
it's gonna be an increase. So let's say the
Good,
next
it's
payment's
good.
100,000 the next
Right.
year. That's still a 50,000 increase you have to have in the
Yeah.
budget.
But some of the moving parts, so again, what blew us out of the water for our proposed 2018 is a $60,000 increase in legal and a $150,000 increase in
Yep,
hydrants.
no,
So if that's going to be baked into the 2019 budget, right, that will be
So-
there.
Is that all of the hydrants, or will there be another increase in
Another-
hydrants?
No, bank next
That will be all of them,
That's all.
So-
up to you?
all of them, yeah.
So next year, we won't say,
Other
oh,
than
there's more,
developments.
right, but,
yeah,
Right.
other than what goes in on Page Road.
Yeah, right now, I've captured 8 hydrants. They're actually live on Page Road right now, so those are already in this budget
Oh,
as
for the
well.
new
Yeah,
housing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, so now you take on that new full interest and principal payment in 2019, but it may just take over from, absorb the hydrant increase this year and legal increase, so.
Although you're
I mean,
gonna-
you think about the
Although I
tax
would
cap.
bet that you're gonna roll back in with 200 grand for roads
Well,
in
I
19.
don't know. That decision's not been made, but I think everyone knows that when you take $200,000 out of an operating budget to go and put it back in, that's difficult to do. And then we may have to just grow that slowly, little steps at, $50,000 a year, whatever can be
for
afforded.
paving?
Well, it's an
50
option.
grand
I
is
mean,
not
there's
gonna
an
get you
option
a lot of
is,
road.
50 grand doesn't do anything.
So, what I would
Well,
like to
it's-
see
Paint the
is, can we
stripes.
capture the value of what Continental has put in up north? Because we've been saying we're gonna do 200 grand till we get caught up. Have they done $150,000
well,
worth?
no, I mean, you'll look.
mean St.
when you-
Cobain?
if
St.
you-
Cobain or whatever that work that the taxpayers haven't had to pay for, we got the roads covered. How many of those roads were on our, oh my gosh, we have to pay
Well,
these right
some
away
of them
list?
were and some of them weren't.
So,
I mean,
right,
some of them
so-
were in really good shape.
Right,
Those are probably ones we just did 5 years
Yeah.
ago.
Right,
They
so
were.
then we did a bunch of work under St. Cobain, doesn't really, to me, hold much if those weren't roads that we were gonna target anyway.
If you take a look online, you'll see that Jack and I worked on just updating his
road plan.
5-year plan. So you'll see, when you see paving to the left, more information, click on it, and you'll see our 5-year plan. And it'll show you, now that 5-year plan was based on funding of 400,000.
Right.
So take a look at that, see what we were planning to do for the next 5 years. Now you gotta cut that in half. Now, I told this to the Board of Selectmen. There's, the approach that we're using right now on paving, I feel, is the best way to resurface roads. When they're in really poor shape, we grind them, and we compact them, regrade, and pave
it
with.
right.
Right, we do it right, you definitely get more life out of that road. If we're gonna be looking at reduced funding over the next, 5 years, we may have to look at spot grinding and shim and overlay.
Could we not have a similar approach to the roads that we do with the fire station, that we're gonna be over the tax, we're not gonna be able to approve it most likely and be within the tax cap, but we're gonna put it forward anyway. Could we not do the same with the $200,000 for the highway? Just say, put it forward?
Yeah, you could.
I can't because it's
No,
yours.
The board pulled it off
Right.
because we, as we said earlier, we felt it was the right time of the year. It was the right, it was the right thing to do, so that when we presented all these warrant articles to the residents, they weren't overwhelmed by all the costs.
I like more the merrier.
I know you
Put 'em
do,
all on.
but we're, at the end of the day, if we go back into 12, they're asking for a lot of money. Where do we put it, and when do they start saying no? Our biggest priority is this fire station.
No, I understand that.
And if we could take all the other warrant articles out, we would. The fire station is our biggest biggest
And-
concern.
But is that saying that we don't trust the voters to make the right decision on roads and fire, that they can only handle one?
But
Because that's not the only thing that they're gonna be
if
competing
they're
against.
looking at a multi-million-dollar fire station versus 200,000, to say, oh, I can pay the 200 grand, I can't pay.
Well,
the-"
realistically, it's not, the fire station's not gonna be up against the roads. The fire station's gonna be up against the other half of the town that needs to be, looking forward. So it's, the roads
I'm
aren't.
not sure
gonna-
people consider it ballot to ballot.
Oh, I do. What's the bottom
I
line
know you
impact?
do, but I'm not sure a lot of other people do. Because there wasn't, if that's the case, there wasn't a whole lot of no's last year where somebody would trade off one on one ballot for one on the other.
Right, so maybe they felt it was worth it, and people on those roads probably want theirs, we have a plan, stick with it. Just like, because it's gonna be hard to ramp it back up again, it really is.
I'll tell you right now, if I did my math right, the proposed budget's up 9.3%.
Did you,
Yeah.
there's a number at the bottom, $100
Yeah.
on 350.
No, I'm just saying 9.3% increase, not on the tax rate,
Yeah.
just in the dollar figure.
Yeah.
That's a big number.
That include the warrants?
No.
No,
It's just the operating
just
budget
operating.
alone.
That's why I'm saying you're trying to throw another,
Oh, no, I'm saying the budget's easy, we got 175, bottom line cut.
but no, it's
Figure it out.
everything. It's everything.
Bottom line cut. I'm embracing the tax cap.
Glad I got to travel for work.
Then again, I
I'm
also
gonna
think
kneel
that
next
whatever you want, put it on a warrant article. If we can't recommend it, but people can still vote for it, let people have a say. Let people vote.
I Put it on and then we'll zero it at deliberative. That makes people so happy.
That'll give, yeah,
I'll leave a dollar.
Don't leave a
How's that?
dollar, that'll be great too.
I'll leave a dollar.
that'll give Bill,
$1.50 inflation.
Can't wait.
that'll give Bill something.
$1.50 for the fire station. What's that gonna get us?
Nothing. They wouldn't even get the front door.
No, but I think that people will vote based on the issue and whether or not they support it. and-
Well, so Carrie, there was a big discussion last year about what weight does the recommendation carry? And if you get 20 items and 18 of them have to be no,
Still voted for them.
The unfortunate part, well, not the unfortunate, but I believe people do look at the recommendations and take that as good or bad, and it's there.
they must have voted against it because it's not needed.
Right, something's
Whatever.
not there, so, to me, it's like, we've got to figure out a way to let the public know that we're denying it, not because it's no value, there's not a need, it's, the tax cap is causing this issue. But that's a subject on open forum, so we'll talk about that.
All right.
Try the Litchfield WhatsApp page. I'll get your message out.
It'll get us to 1,200 people.
That's almost half the vote.
That's about
I
half the
know,
number of people that vote.
No, it's like 2,400 at this
I
point.
said half the
Last I
voters.
looked, it was like 12, 15, 12, 13.
120 comments.
All
I
right.
got. That's
So,
Do you want me
anything else on
to?
town business? Because then we'll move into member input, which is kind of where
Okay.
we're moving
Do you-
into.
Do you want me to just, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time, do you want me to just tell you what you got for warrant articles, or you?
Go ahead.
You got them
Hit
there
me.
in front of you, but just so you know. Article 3 is, these numbers will change because I've only got one placeholder for planning board zoning amendment changes, but anyhow. Obviously, we talked about the fire station bond, Article 3. Dennis brings up a real good point, that the first year of bond is always interest payment only. I think that's something you can elect to do. Operating budget, we've just left it 0 for now. full-time police officer is on the warrant. And we discussed this last year. As of right now, it's there. As I said, the budget, the selectmen have not voted on all these articles yet.
We filled the position, though.
But I
right?
think, I have a feeling it's, I don't know.
Has the position that we approved last year been filled?
Yes.
That has been filled. The officer's at the academy now, and he should be coming out right after, right before Christmas.
I think the chief, there was some debate last year about whether to put, why did they put 2 on the ballot? If that 2 was the need and he was afraid he would get
He
none.
couldn't, he was just too much for him
Yeah.
to manage.
No,
And
that's
why,
fine.
and we, everyone kind of, the budget committee and
Right.
everyone said, hey, let's spread it out over.
Well, I
2
just wanted to
years.
make sure it was filled, because if it was filled and it was not filled and critical, well, then I was gonna say, well,
Yeah.
you know.
No, this would be the last full-timer that he was looking
Okay.
for. Then we have a plow truck lease. So this is being proposed to lease purchase a plow truck for the highway department. It's a fully equipped truck, so we're buying the chassis, the plow, the wing, all the hydraulic lights, salt spreader, all that stuff. I take that back, we're not buying the salt spreader, we already have one, so.
Did I say a 10-year lease?
And we're going to lease finance this for 6 years. The first year payment, we are proposing to take from the unassigned fund balance. So we're actually proposing this to have no tax impact first year,
Okay.
okay? The library will, the third year for their wage plan implementation, $10,401. The town earned time accrual expendable trust fund, for the last couple of years, this has been at the level of $50,000. This year, the selectmen, it's been at $60,000. This year, the selectmen have placed $50,000 on the warrant. And again, this will be coming from the unassigned fund balance, not costing a tax impact.
How much of that did we spend this year?
Well, as of right now, our buyouts are coming up. So I'm projecting that at year end, we could have a balance of 15 to 25,000.
So that's without this, so you're saying we could spend 35,000 or 30,000?
That we would end up starting off January 1st, 2018, the fund would have somewhere between 15 to 25,000 in it. Then we would put the 50,000 back in.
So that represents 1 buyout or 2, do you think? How many do you anticipate
Depends.
retiring?
Oh, it varies every year. We got union and non-union.
Oh, these are like, vacation buyback?
This is the
then?
vacation earned time buyback, yeah. This is the buyback,
Gotcha.
yeah.
It also helps, because it reduces your
Liability.
Yeah.
liability. I was gonna say risk, but I knew that was the wrong word. The
It's-
unfunded liability that you're carrying for that, right?
Yeah, we have, and that's in our financial audit statements. And, there's no secret, we also have a police chief that's retiring, maybe gonna retire soon, but we're trying to buy down that unfunded liability every year too, so that's part of the calculation. Building Systems Trust Fund, we've got a few things going on this year, about the fire station, leach field, we've lost some air conditioning units. So I'm thinking that balance of that fund is gonna be about $30,000 at year end. I like to try to keep it as close as I can to, $40,000, $50,000, so we're proposing to put $25,000 in this year, again, from unassigned fund balance. And that's it.
How much is in the unassigned fund balance?
So we just met with the auditors this week, and I believe we had almost just over 1.2 million in the unassigned fund balance. And, every year, we've been taking some money out to do special one-time projects. And at the year end, we've been very fortunate that with, unexpended funds, surplus revenues, not using as much overlay as we thought we would for tax abatements, we end up putting money back in. So the fund actually grew $25,000 in 2016. So even though we reached in, we took out a little over 100,000, we put it back in, and it grew. And the auditors pretty much commended the town that what we're doing right now is really good, prudent practice. And said that if you're going to use the unassigned fund balance, use it for those one-time expenditures. Don't use it to subsidize your operating budget, because you'll get yourself in that trap where you won't have the funds one day.
All right,
So,
So they're
we
com-
watch that very closely.
so they're comfortable that that'll get us some pretty good
Yeah,
reading on
we're using, this year, we're actually proposing to use less from the
I just want to make
unassigned
sure we're
fund
well
balance.
positioned to get prime rating on bonds, that's all.
We are in a good
Yeah.
situation.
Okay.
So Troy, those, even though they're coming out of unassigned, they count against the tax cap, correct?
They count as revenue. The tax cap
It's
calculation,
zeroed out.
so what I do is when you see the revenue schedule,
Mhm.
I also add in any unassigned fund balance use to revenue.
Yep.
In the state law, when it says to add back, it's when when the selectmen go to set the tax rate, and they just say, okay, your tax rate's gonna be $12. I wanna take an additional $100,000 from the unassigned fund balance and make it $11.50. So that is, if you do that to reduce the tax rate, it's an add back.
Okay, so this is a net wash, basically?
This is a net wash.
Okay. So, to go back to your 84,000 number, that's really on a guesstimate on revenues as well, right?
I've used the revenues that we haven't actually set yet, but will be set sometime in October. And so usually what I'd carry is revenue estimates of what we set in October, our tax rate.
Okay.
Because they're pretty current. We know then pretty much where state revenues, car registrations are the big ones.
Okay. Can I ask a question on the plow truck?
Sure.
So this is 2841 for the first year, but it shows,
Oh,
Oh,
it's a typo.
we
Well, but I'm assuming
changed,
then
we
it
just
won't
changed
add
that
to
Monday night and,
This is the right number, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, so that's-
The wording is just not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
the
I
20.
wasn't sure if it was because we would get it in March, you're not paying for the first 3
No,
months or something?
you know what it was, is my mistake. I originally had an 8-year lease purchase, and
Oh.
the selectmen changed it to a 6-year, and I didn't update the number.
Okay.
So
27,000 is the real number.
Is the real number.
it's used exclusively for plowing? And how long?
Well,
I
it's-
guess, have we done an analysis as to whether or not it actually makes sense to buy it versus hire a contractor with a truck?
I was just
Well,
gonna go-
our problem is, the fleet that we currently have, so we have 3 plow trucks. Big, when I'm talking, the dump trucks.
Right,
We have an F-150 or F-250, and we have
No,
a
but
1-ton.
the big ones.
But the actual plow trucks with wings. So 2 of them, I don't have this information, we gotta get the information to you to show you the age and everything with them. They most likely probably, unless we do substantial work to the frame of these vehicles, probably won't pass inspection next year.
okay.
They are inspected in September, and this is the feedback we got. He had to do some frame work. After this winter, we're probably gonna lose at least 1, if not 2. So we have 1 frontline plow truck that the town did purchase new, and that vehicle now is 8 years old. The life expectancy of plow trucks is somewhere between 15 to 18 years. And I'd like to think that Litchfield, where we don't work them as hard in the summertime, that we can get 18 years out of our trucks. But rule of thumb is 15 years probably. So our frontline plow truck is half its life.
Right.
The contractors, it's getting harder and harder to find contractors. So if you go down there and take a look at the contractor trucks, they're not in great shape. So we're starting to find that, the contractors, we have a couple with their own trucks, but we also use contractors, and they provide a driver, and they use our truck. So, if we're into a serious snow event or a bad winter like last year, the contractors are there with their plow trucks that are 20 years old, and that's fine, but when they break down, citizens, I'm not gonna be able to find a plow truck anywhere.
I think it's crazy
So
that
you
all
need to
paving
make,
companies
so we
and no
basically,
trucks.
we're basically making sure we've got, 3 or 4 good trucks. The contractors have got 3 trucks sitting down there right now. And I think by making sure we have a good mix, we're always prepared for what Mother Nature will dish out.
Any other questions?
You turn off the streetlights, we could save $13,000.
We've already reduced the streetlights a couple of times. We pulled them out.
I drove past Cutler like the first time that light was gone. I'm like, that was my,
Shocker.
boom, went right past it. I was totally thrown. So are there any other questions about the budget? Any member input? Starting on this side, member input? All right, this side? All right, any public input? All right, it's not quite.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second? Anybody second?
Second?
And all in favor of closing?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Aye.
Aye.